So if you're prepared for that failure and you go into the corn maze and say, hey, I don't know how long this thing's going to take. It's going to be rough. It's going to be tumble. It's going to get dark. It might start to rain. The next sun might come up the next morning, and it might get cold outside, and it's going to hurt, and your bones going to shiver. But there is a way out of this thing. And so if I could tell anybody, my business tip, which isn't much of a business tip, is to anticipate and prepare for failure.
Hello, I'm Sam.
I'm Brandon.
And we have guest CJ Quinney on our podcast. And welcome to the Middleton Methods podcast, where you get to be a fly on our wall and get practical tips, gain insight, and laugh at our expense.
Har. We're going to have fun this week, CJ. We have a very, very special, long overdue guest. So CJ is a president of Eric Thomas & Associates, one of the top motivational, I don't even think you can call it a motivational speaking company. You guys do so much more than that. Have a great community, amazing events, products. You're also a young entrepreneur, father, have a couple of...
Husband.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about we got a great topic this week, and excited to get your kind of perspective and the things that have been working for you as well.
Yeah. So just a quick background. We've had the pleasure of not only working with CJ for 4 years in his company, but we also have had him as our branding coach for the Middleton Methods podcast for a year now.
Sounds like you said Brandon coach.
Brandon coach. He is the Brandon coach and the branding coach. So the reason that we really wanted to do a whole like a normal podcast with CJ today is we do have a lot of listeners from the Breathe University community that is part of Eric Thomas & Associates, and we wanted to bring them and also all of our other listeners just a real special treat. He's a smart dude, so you guys are really in for
talking about him like
a good time.
Here.
Well, I'm telling everybody else, and now we'll turn it over to you. Take it away. No, I'm just kidding. You want to say hi and add anything in?
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. It is long overdue. It's kind of like, it's weird being like on the show with you guys. It's like you watch your favorite show like Oprah, Ellen or something, and now I'm like actually here. So I'm excited. You guys, man, congratulations to you guys, seriously, for all the things that you're doing. You know, when we first started talking about this, I thought it was just so paramount to be able to hear from a young, successful married couple with kids who was going through the same crazy stuff I was going through. So every week when I listen to the podcast, it's like I'm listening to my life. And so you guys are doing an awesome job. It's super fun. It's super helpful. Keep up the great work. But yes, I am excited to be on. And for those of you watching, I forced my way on. Sometimes you got to go after what you want in life. And I told you, put me on the podcast, doggone it. So I'm here now. So thank you guys for the invitation.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We're so excited. So I do want to go into the Middleton Madness, which you're very familiar with. You know all about it. And I wanted to talk about the Quinney Madness a little bit, because it's funny when we would get on the phone week to week and talk about the podcast and talk about this segment. You always had some craziness going on in your life as well. And
how do you not with 3-year-olds and babies running around? It's just... Yeah, it's just a recipe for. There's always something going on.
So I don't know if there's some viewers that don't know this, but CJ and Eric Thomas and another partner of theirs, Carl, have a podcast called the Secret to Success podcast, which is an awesome, entertaining podcast you guys are going to want to check out too. But I know one of the things that inspired the Middleton Madness is CJ comes on and he shares stories of his kids and some craziness going on with them. So what is something lately that you can share that is some madness that's gone on in your world?
Okay, this is, I can like literally, we can do one of 100 things. But I think, and I actually, you guys are getting it first. I didn't even tell anybody. I'm going to tell the same story on my podcast. But so Friday I get a phone call from the school right around 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm going to pick up the kids. I'm on my way to pick up the kids, and I get a call from the school. And I was just down the street, so I was like, I'm not even going to answer this, because if it's something bad, I'd rather just find out what
We've done that before.
I get there, and my son is at the front desk with another kid. The other kid's got an ice pack on his lip.
Oh, no.
And my son's sitting at the front desk, and he's looking at me, and he sees me come in, and he looks like he saw a ghost, of course. And so I come in, and I'm like, all right, what's going on? So his teacher comes up from the front. He got written up. So apparently he's on the playground, right? He's on the playground with his friends, and they're all playing around. And in his class is mostly girls. It's like maybe like 12 girls and 4 boys. Well, the boys are known to be rough and whatever. But anyway, one of the kids was behind him picking with him. And the teacher's telling me this story. This is not my version of events. One of the kids is behind him, and he keeps like touching Trey's head and smacking Trey's head. And Trey turns around once and tells him to stop. Turns around twice and tells him to stop. Turns around the third time, and instead of telling him to stop, hauls off and punches the kid in the mouth. Now, here's the only problem. Well, there's several problems, first of all. The main problem is that he turned around and swung so fast, he hit the wrong kid.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So this poor kid at the front whose lips bleeding and he's got an ice pack on his lip wasn't even the culprit.
Oh.
And so I'm at this weird place as a father where I'm like, do I yell at him for just punching period, or do I yell at him for hitting the wrong kid? Or like, son, make sure you get the culprit. So I don't know, man. Anyway, that was on Friday, and so he got in trouble, and he had all kind of chores, and he's a good kid, man. But he's tough. He's tough-minded. He gets very intense. You know what I mean? And it's it can be one of those things sometimes. So love him to life, but he is a rough and tumble kid, to say the least.
That's crazy. And he's 4 now, right?
Well, 3. He'll be 4 in January, so he's coming up on 4 here shortly.
Yeah, Brandon. I'm like a grandpa. I'm mixing up your names. Max is turning 3 in January, and Brandon always asks, like, okay, is this like rough and tough stage gonna stop? And every time I talk to parents that have a 3, 4, 5, it just sounds like it's like a different version of.
There's like something primal in those little boys.
Those little boys are rough little boys.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. The teacher's always like, every time Trey gets in trouble, she's like, it's not just him, it's pretty much all the boys. I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit.
We've asked the same thing. Like, is this only Max? And yeah, definitely. Exactly. I guess Max was at school yesterday, and they were playing musical chairs. And the whole concept, the music goes out and you have to grab a chair, right? Last person out gets kicked out. And the music stops, and he decides to put one butt cheek on each chair. So he's got 2 chairs, and he's going like this. So he won't share. And like the kids are trying to sit in the chair, and he's like, no. And he's like freaking out at them. So it's not quite as crazy as punching a kid in the face or the wrong kid, but
everything is a competition with little boys. Everything is a competition. I found a way to use the competition to our advantage at the house, though, because his sister Avery, she's only 1.5. And, she's just learning, the whole teeth brushing thing and everything. And Trey, who moves 1,000,000 miles an hour anytime other than first thing in the morning, I'm trying to get him like going fast. And so now I've channeled his competitive energy. So every day it's like, I bet you can't brush your teeth before Avery does. I bet you can't get your clothes on before Avery does. And he's just like, it is working like a charm. He's flying all over the house. We're ready to go in like 30 seconds now. It's great.
Nice.
Awesome.
However, that is not a parenting tip. I don't know if that's going to hurt him in the long run or not.
Right.
Don't do it.
Like, I'm
just telling you what I'm doing to satisfy myself for some immediate gratification.
Brandon does. I think it's like a dad thing, because Brandon does the same thing with Peyton and Max, and I always wonder, like, are you pitting the kids against each other? Is this friendly? Who's going to make a happy plate first, or whatever?
Yeah. She'll be like, I'm winning, and I'm like, all right, well. It's not a race. Just eat your dinner. You don't have to.
Just eat your dinner, okay? Everybody's going to get dessert as long as they finish their food.
Exactly. No doubt.
So we had a little topic come in that we thought would be a perfect topic as our main topic to discuss with you today. It's something you're very familiar with, is just having productive days. You're a busy entrepreneur. You're running multiple projects within Eric Thomas and Associates at one time, right? So what question came in that was similar from the Breathe University community, and we just moved it around a little bit to just kind of say, what are the best ways to stay productive? What are your keys to having a successful and productive day?
Before we do that, though,
yeah.
just for the audience that isn't familiar with Breathe University and that may not necessarily know who CJ is.
Oh, forgive me.
Let's
it's
give
a powerhouse
an
community.
idea of so you've got events going on all over the country.
All over the world.
We've got, and then you've traveled with E speaking also all over, outside of your guys' events. You've got the clothing line, books, Breathe University online training community, and an album. I heard there's another album coming out you're working on as well.
Yeah. Oh, there is?
Like,
another album.
You got a ton of things going on. So I just want to set the stage so people really understand. Like, some people have, like us, we're just trying to get, stay consistent with a podcast and write a book outside of our core business. That's a lot in and of itself. Couldn't imagine cutting an album and all the other things that come with that.
Yes, so. No doubt. It's a lot, it is, but it's fun, and that's one of the things that you guys know from, doing your podcast and doing what you guys do. When you build a business around your life, you really can't control some of the things you want to do and some of the things you don't want to do. I think that's one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is, you can kind of craft your day and craft your, activities and projects around things that you actually like to do, around things that actually are meaningful to you. And so, yes, it's extremely busy, and there's always a lot going on, and there's always more to do. And but I think it's one of those things where when you genuinely love what you're doing and you're doing it for a reason and a purpose, you find a way to get it done. You find a way to get up a little earlier. You find a way to stay up a little later. And it's been a fun ride for sure. But don't let them hype you up too much. I'm just the man behind the curtain. ET is the man. So.
It's three. What do you guys call it? The three of you guys? You guys are like Voltron, basically.
Yeah, it's the trifecta. They say E's the mouth, I'm the brains, and Carl's the hand. So that just basically means I tell everybody what to do. So and they let me know about it often as well. So yeah, no, it's a cool company. It's a small family type company. We've got some folks that work with us and that are as close as family, and it's fun, man. It's been a good ride, and looking forward to taking it into the future as well.
So when you're talking about being in business and having so much on your plate and stuff, what would you be able to share with everybody that are some of the key things or key ways that you stay productive in the business? Having so much, like, it could be easy to just have those squirrels where you're just all over the place.
You work on everything every day, or
spending a lot of time on just stuff versus like really productivity to get to the next level.
So here's the thing, right? And it's the philosophy of, like, I always used to think about, you got to make more money, right? But the truth of the matter is, you could also cut spending, right? And so for me, I realized, I can't necessarily make more time in a day, but what I can do is cut the fat. And so I was one of those entrepreneurs when I started being an entrepreneur. Hey, because I'm working from home and I'm working for myself and I'm setting my own hours and doing my own thing, if a friend called at 11:30 in the afternoon, 12 o'clock noon, and wanted to have a 30-minute conversation, hey, sure, I'm here, right? I don't have anything to do. I'm not on the clock. I don't have a corporate job. I don't have a boss, staring down my, desk every day. So I was taking calls. I may, go out and take an extended, people's favorite things. Can we do lunch, right? I cut those things out. People ask me to do lunch now. I'm like, no, I don't do lunch. Now, if you want to meet up for coffee, 30 minutes in and out, but I don't have time anymore to sit down, look at a menu for 15, 20 minutes, wait on the waitress to bring my bill. Before you look up, especially with Atlanta traffic, it's a 2.5 hour lunch. And so now I found ways to cut back on my time. And listen, this is one of the biggest things I can tell you, you as an entrepreneur. You don't owe anybody anything. And I think early on, I felt like I owed everybody, a conversation, right? Because E and I started to have some success. So everybody who spoke, everybody who wanted to do what we were doing, they would call me up and say, CJ, I got this great idea. And I'd listen to them for 2 hours, right? And then I'd look up and go, man, and I'd be like almost finished with my stuff before I had to get my kids or before I had to move on to the next thing. And I'd be like, man, it's just not enough time in the day. Well, that wasn't the truth. The truth of the matter is I wasn't using my time effectively, and I felt like I owed everybody else. And so the key to me for being productive is, trust me, even if you work 8-9 hours, that's a long time. If you can't get what you need to get done in 8-9 hours in a day, you're not doing it right. You're not being productive. You don't need to. Now, granted, there might be times when you got big projects or you got other things going on where, yeah, you got to go to work and it's going to be some long, long hours. But for the most part, on a daily basis, if you're doing it right, 8, 9, 10 hours should be more than enough time to accomplish every single thing you need to get accomplished in a day. I'll leave here today at 4:55 to go pick up my kids. It takes me 5 minutes to get to the school, and I am done for the day. Unless we have a call for BU, which we do on Thursday night and every other Monday, unless we have a call, I'm done for the day. I'm not picking back up my laptop at 6:30 with my wife and kids right there and going to work for another 3-4 hours. I'm not doing that. I'm finding a way to get it done within that same time frame, 8 to 5, that everybody else is. And I'm there for my kids in the morning, I'm there for my wife in the morning, and I'm there for them afterwards. But I cut the fat through the middle of the day, which before I had no idea how to manage that time. Now, I was never watching TV, and, I wasn't like, binge watching TV shows by any means, but I did have those small habits of letting people call me. And, there's something called time on task and how long it takes you to return to that time, right? So it's not just the half-hour phone call. It's the half-hour phone call followed by the half hour of you trying to figure out where the heck you were to get back. So I really cut a lot of the fat out of my day, and I'm 10 times more productive now. And I don't need, 15 hours in a day to work in order to get stuff done anymore.
How do you prioritize? Do you try to touch every one of your projects, or do you have projects that come in like seasons? Like obviously, like when the album was getting closer to finish, I'm assuming you maybe spent some more time on that than when you first started, or when a new book's coming out, or closer to events.
No, there's seasons for everything, and that's what I want people to understand is it's not just every single day of your life is going to look the same. There may be some times when you have to tell your wife, hey, I'm working on this book. I got another 3 weeks to finish this thing. For the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be working a couple hours at night. Okay, cool. Your wife can understand that. Your husband can understand that because there's a deadline, right? There's a date. They can see the progress. You can show them the chapters that it's getting done. And hey, this thing, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think it's important that in those seasons you grind and do whatever you have to do, but then find your way back, to level. You know what I mean? Find your way back to whatever that is, because sometimes we can take off and we can just go way too far outside the box, and we're working, and you forget what you're working for. So no, there are some crazy seasons, for us. Anytime we got a book release, obviously, traveling, right? We travel abroad. So, a 2-week trip to Australia, that's a lot of strain on, my wife, being home with the kids for 2 weeks straight. Shout out to my parents who I fly down every time that goes down now, because I've learned from my old ways. But there's a time and season for everything, and I think, but that's why it's important to be disciplined, because you can make those deposits so that when you need to make that withdrawal, it doesn't hurt quite as much.
I like that.
Yeah. We'll move this over to personal for a little bit, because I think having those key things for a productive day does go into the personal life too. And you're talking about like the boundaries that you set between the amount of time you work versus there's non-negotiable times you're with the family. And we do something really similar at our house too. How do you and Candace figure out, like in those busy seasons, for instance, Brandon and I are very specific. If I need extra time, or if Brandon needs extra time, we're super specific about what we need to work on, and keeping each other accountable, because we know how much it takes away from our marriage or family to be able to give that time to the other person. So do you guys have a routine or a way that you guys figure those seasons out as well, to make sure that you're always keeping the peace with your marriage at the same time?
I'm not going to tell you like there's this super structured, like, okay, every night at 8 o'clock, we're going to, whatever. But I think the key component, and I just said it a minute ago, is to constantly, and this is something I'm learning. I'm not the expert on this, but it's to constantly be making those deposits, right? So if I'm in a slower season where we're not traveling as much, where we're not doing those things, I need to be more mindful about date nights, getting babysitters, making sure that we're hanging out, making sure I'm, dropping cards, making sure we're doing lunch and those kind of things, right? Because if I'm making all of these deposits, right, even if I need to make a big withdrawal, if I tell you, hey, you're going to have to take a $10,000 withdrawal at the bank, some people might go, ooh, if you only got $11,000 in there, that's going to hurt quite a bit. But if you've deposited, $700,000 over the course of the last few months, and I tell you a $10,000 deposit, you're never excited about, a withdrawal. You're never excited about the 10 grand leaving, but it doesn't hurt as much, right? It's still you still might feel it a little bit. It's a little sting, a little pinch, but it's not as deep as it is if you haven't been making those deposits for the last however long. And so I'm in that mindset now, and you guys know the tour is called Stay Ready. And so I'm in that mindset now of keeping things up here so that when I do need to, go and be gone for 4 or 5 days at a time, I do need to leave and we're going to take meetings in New York or LA or going across the ocean to London or whatever, I have a lot in the reserve tank so that I'm not draining that thing. And that's something that, I wish I could take credit for, but E taught me that a long time ago. Like, hey, you need to keep it up here because it's the people who keep it at like status quo that when all of a sudden you need to take that withdrawal, that boom, you feel that thing hit, and now everybody's panicking, right? You're looking at the account going, whoa, how are we going to pay this bill? And so that's it for me, Sam, is I just want to make sure that I'm keeping that high level. And it's not easy to do because, you do get familiar and you do get contempt sometimes, but you have to, I think it's a constant battle against that. You know what I mean? And I think you guys do a great job with the marriage challenges and things that you guys are doing to hold people accountable for that. That's what it's about. Like, I need that. We're in the midst of a 100-day challenge right now, and I'm trying to do 100 days of making sure my wife knows how much I love her, whether it's, text messages, cards, dinners, dates, anything, you know what I mean? So I think we constantly have to keep pushing the envelope on that.
How do you, unlike the bank where we can just check our balance, how do you check in with Candace on where the balance sits?
Yeah, so I always check in with, my balance is always high. I don't know why, but like my balance is like, I'm good. It's her balance that tends to, it's like at the stock market.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you don't really know. Yeah. So I'm
like,
so I right, exactly. So I check in on her, and I think any man who's been married to his wife, what the stock market is looking like, right? You can tell from the tone of the text. You can tell from the tone of, hey, how's it going today? You can tell when it's starting to get like a little like, okay, you need to reel it back in. And so we do have, check-ins. We do financial check-ins. Candace is good about that stuff. I'm a free spirit. I don't want to be tied down to any calendars. I don't want a Wednesday night at every, I don't like doing that. I just don't like it. But she is good about making sure, hey, let's have a checkpoint. She calls it focus time. And she's like, hey, we spent time together, but it wasn't focus time. The kids were around. That doesn't count. It only counts if like we're like deadlocked in each other's eyes, just like staring into our souls is the only time quality time counts for her. And so she's usually good about letting me know that. And I think, for whichever spouse tends to need that more time in that particular way, I think don't be selfish and not tell that other person. Like, don't just sit there and build up animosity and go, because here, I'm running around the house like, duh, you know what I mean? Like thinking everything's good. And all of a sudden you're like pissed because we haven't had this focus time, which I didn't necessarily need. My needs are being met. I feel good. And you're kind of like low key pissed behind my back. That's not fair. So Tell me, hey, babe, you need to carve out some time this week and we need some focus time. I'm good with that. Just let me know what I need to do. I'll make it happen. And I'll try to be as observant as possible. But I think sometimes we kind of conceal our feelings and then we can kind of let them out in a negative way. And so I think obviously communication is huge in that regard.
And guys not being offended when she does bring that to you. Like,
well, I think I'm going to just throw it out there. For all the ladies out there that are sitting here listening to this lady bashing fest, it sounds like more, I look at it this way. I'm just kidding. I look at it this way.
You guys are just moving targets. We got to stay on our toes. That's all.
Yes, and I think it's like in our nature to want to push you guys to the next level of greatness. Like, we probably see more greatness in our husbands than you guys see in yourselves. So when you're giving, for example, Brandon, when you're giving me a certain amount of love or a certain amount of attention, now you've set the bar there. So then the next time you think like, oh, I'm filling your love bucket, but at the same time I'm going, no, because now we're going to push it like to this level. It's time to go to the next level. And we do that in business, and we always want to reach the next level of success in our business. And I take that mentality into our business, or into our marriage, into our business, into our marriage as well, right? Like, so just take it with a grain of salt if we get a little ticked off. Now, I know I'm not, just like Candace, I'm not afraid to tell you when something's going on, and I feel like I need attention. I'm not scared to say it, because I would rather just say it and have it, even if I don't say it in the most loving way, like you get it, than to just let all that animosity build up. It's definitely, that's a fire waiting to happen there.
For sure. No, I appreciate it. And like I said, this could be, and it could go the other way as well, right? Like for guys, if we got things that, are on our mind, or you have things that are building up inside, you got to be willing to share it. And so, no, I agree. It's not just, I'm not just saying women. I'm not, it's a two-way street. My wife told me the other day, she said, well, why don't you ever tell me anything I need to work on? I said, I'm happy. She's like, nothing would change. I was like, I would change. I mean, nothing. And she said, well, maybe your standards are just too low.
I almost went to ask Brandon that the other day. I went to ask Brandon the same question the other day, and on my way to do it, I chickened out. It's like, if there's anything I need to change, I don't want to hear it today. So I might ask him another day, but it was not that day.
Trust me, that is a definite fear of any man. Is like, oh yeah, then I'm going to make this one small, and then my wife, who's super dramatic, I could be like, hey, dear, if you didn't, it's just this. And then she's not mad. She's just so disappointed in herself for like the next 5 days. It's like, oh, I'm a terrible wife. I'm like,
I do the same thing.
Shouldn't have said anything. I'm done.
Don't pat my leg. He's giving me the leg pat.
Yeah, trust me, it is. Yeah, I'm not going there. There's none. Nope, I'm good. Carry on, dear. We're good.
So let's switch this back to business for a minute. We do our segment, Brandon's No BS Business Tips, and I want to hear what, like, we didn't plan this out with you or anything, so we don't have anything like written down to talk about today, but what is just some business tip or something that's on your mind right now that you can share with the audience when it relates to just being an entrepreneur or anything in the business world that's resonating with you? Yeah,
prepare for failure. Right? And so
a lot of it.
'Cause that's inevitable.
Yeah. So, but I don't think people say it like that. You know what I mean? Like, people always talk about prepare for success and these big dreams and these big visions. Yeah. And I'm telling you to prepare for failure, right? Because I believe that most people are not successful as entrepreneurs, not because they don't have what it takes, not because they don't have a great idea, not because they don't have what it takes to make that happen, but because the failure ends up crushing them, right? And so I look at myself. We had so many failures, and it got so frustrating. There's times that I wanted to quit so bad, and nobody ever told me to prepare for the failures. Everybody was just like, hey, you can do it, your dreams, go out there, get what you want, make it happen. And when I was out there and it was just crumbling, I wasn't necessarily ready for that. And so if I could give one tip to an entrepreneur, it's prepare for failure. Like, literally put your coat of armor on and go, all right, we're opening up this hot dog stand and we're not selling anything for the next 30 days. Just anticipate that it's going to fail. Whatever that business idea is, your real estate, your beauty salon, your barber shop, whatever it is going to fail. Fail. All right, get that in your head. And then once you get that in your head, you realize that the failure actually can be turned into information, right? And that's what you want to do, is anticipate that failure. And you go, yep, you should embrace the failure. Oh my God, thank you. I found this way that absolutely doesn't work. I can rule that out and we can go to the next one. Guess what? That's a roadblock too. It's another dead end, right? It's like, have you ever been to a corn maze? When you go to a corn maze, you go down a path and you're stuck. And sometimes you got to go back and there's nothing there again. And you go down another path and you're stuck again. Guess what? If you quit, that's the only way you're not going to get out the corn maze. But if you try every kind of way, you may go back the same way. You get frustrated. You get all of those things. But at the end of the day, there is a way out, right? But if you anticipate, now imagine this, Brandon and Sam, if you went to the corn maze and you went, this is going to be a breeze. I'm going to walk through this thing first time, blindfolded, eyes closed. I got everything mapped out. I got a business plan. I got all of these things. I got, people investing. I got all this stuff going on. Bet, let's go, guys. This is going to be a walk in the park. And you go in there and that person runs into a roadblock and they go, whoa. And they turn around, go back again and go, whoa. They weren't prepared for failure. They were only prepared to ball out. And when you're only prepared to ball out and it doesn't happen, guess what? You quit. So if you're prepared for that failure and you go into the corn maze and say, hey, I don't know how long this thing's going to take. It's going to be rough. It's going to be tumble. It's going to get dark. It might start to rain. The next sun might come up the next morning and it might get cold outside and it's going to hurt and your bones going to shiver. But there is a way out of this thing. And so if I could tell anybody, my business tip, which isn't much of a business tip, is to anticipate and prepare for failure.
No, that is a really, really good point, because I do think, especially you're coming from, a motivational speaking empire, right? So it is very much in that sphere to be very positive and not think on the negative. But Brandon and I, for years, have really thought about what's the downside when we make decisions. There's things that we know today, like we've shared on previous podcasts, just having like a nest egg or something to prepare for, like when you make a shift in your business, it may not pan out as quickly as you think it's going to pan out and may take longer. If there's,
it almost certainly will.
Yeah, like if there's a piece of advice that, like if you look at, CJ 10 years ago, what's a piece of advice besides just preparing for failure, like how you could have prepared better for some of these peaks and valleys that you guys have experienced through growing the business?
Well, yeah, I would say, back then it's just, if I could tell myself anything, it would just be to hold on. You know what I mean? There's parts in the journey that, like I was having this discussion with my friend the other day. His wife, they just gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and all was well. But early in her pregnancy, they had a few minor complications, right? But it was your first child, you're freaking out. The doctor says anything, you're freaked out, right? And so he was freaked out, and I called him and I told him, hey, do me a favor, don't freak out. Enjoy this process, because, Matt, if you want to have 2-3 kids, you'll only get to go through this a couple of times in your life. And if you're not enjoying it now, you don't get to go back and relive this pregnancy with this particular child. You know what I mean? And so if you spend the whole pregnancy stressed out and everything's going to be okay, it will be, right? Then you just missed a whole, a fun time in your life where you could have been enjoying it, looking at pictures, doing the baby bump pictures and all of that. You just blew that because of stress over something you can't control. And there were times early on in my entrepreneurship journey where I had to borrow money from my mom, where my wife was paying all the bills, that I felt so stressed out that I wasn't enjoying the journey like I should have been. There were times when I was like, man, this sucks. People are making fun of me. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. Now I'm chasing this pipe dream. It's not working out. And there were moments in time where I felt stressed. And now I look back and go, man, I should have been enjoying every second of that journey. I should have been enjoying every minute of the struggle. And so if I could tell myself anything, if I went back 10 years, I'd just say, yo, dude, relax. Just go at it, have fun, relax,
Yeah, that's really good. And what I'm hearing in there is that there's speed, like that slows it down. When you fail and then you sit in that and you don't enjoy the learning from that failure, it takes you longer to go and make the next failure that's inevitable before you start figuring out the things that are right. So if you're enjoying it, you're like, all right, whatever, like your recovery time is faster for you to get up and go do the other, make the next change. Which means
no, for sure. Hey, Quinney Madness, real quick, the water people are here. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna just sit here. Do 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 do. What do we talk about in the meantime? So he knew he had an appointment possibly coming. We thought like another hour from now. So here we are.
You have the next questions coming up?
I do, yeah. So when CJ gets back, we're going to move on to the marriage minute because I want to talk about the dynamics, a little bit of him and his wife. I could give a little bit of a background scenario with them. Candace works in the corporate world, loves her job, and she loves it, which, we talk a lot about just being entrepreneurs together. So I want to talk about that difference a little bit with CJ, how they make that work for them, because they have a very strong, loving marriage. Candace is she's filled with a ton of faith, and she's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. But then how do they keep their stuff intact as far as their marriage goes and keep that strong? I'm moving into the marriage minute. And
yes, thank you. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. We have our walls were dripping from Hurricane Irma, and we're getting it taken care of. So you guys are catching Quinney Madness on the fly. So I don't know what they're doing out there, but if they come to the door, I apologize in advance. Sorry, marriage minute, I'm ready.
So the quick and the dirty that I was just saying was that you and Candace don't work together in the business. She's in the corporate world and loves what she does, and then you're an entrepreneur and you have your business. So what I want to talk about in the marriage minute today is just a little bit of the dynamic of how you guys spend all day apart, basically, right? And then you come in and you have a really strong, very faith-filled, loving, deposits. Right? And you still get those deposits made. Just talk about it a little bit with us, because as you know, we always talk about being entrepreneurs and working together. So it's always fascinating to us when we meet people that have a successful marriage and they do something different.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is not understanding, and I'm trying, what it means to have a quote unquote regular corporate job or whatever, because I'm always just like, oh, let's go to lunch. Oh, hey, why don't you guys come to LA with me? And she's always like, do you forget that I have a job? Like, I have to work. I have to, and I don't understand that because I don't come from that world, right? And so for me, it's like, if I want to take a spontaneous lunch with my wife, I'm just going to do it, whereas with her, it's a bit more strict and a bit more rigid. And so I think we've done a good job of, now, for anybody who has kids, this is critical. We eat a later dinner, and so what happens is we try to get the kids down by 7:30, 8, for Avery, 8:30 for Trey, 8:30 for Trey. And so that we can have that time every night to kind of hang out, just the two of us, whether we're just, catching up on the show or, just talking, hanging out, eating, laughing, talking about our days, whatever. Try to build in at least that hour of time, where every single night we can catch up. It can be tough sometimes, especially if the kids don't want to go to bed and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to try to make time in every single day to catch up and just have that, one-on-one time. And even if it's just hanging out, watching TV, we try to make sure the kids are down and, that we have that time together. But it's not super easy. Like I said, I wish my wife had a little bit more flexibility. We actually just had that conversation the other day. I was trying to get her plane tickets to LA, and she's like, hey, I can't keep taking off of work, and, I can't keep working remotely. I need to be here. And I understand it, but it is frustrating sometimes because I want them to travel with me. I want them to see the sights and be a part of what I got going on. But at the end of the day, I do have to realize that, my wife, made a lot of sacrifices to get where she's at in her career. She's excellent at what she does, and I have to support her just as much as she supports me on this other side. And, I owe a lot of that, a lot of credit to my wife for, sticking with me through the harder times of this entrepreneurship journey. And now I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing the same for her on the other end. So
the two things I heard, which I think goes either way, whether you're entrepreneurs or work separately, is that you support each other through the process and you make time for each other, which when you were talking, I was like, well, I guess it's not, I don't understand working a job either, but at the same time, I understood it a little better when you were explaining it, because I'm thinking, man, yeah, like even though Brandon and I work together and we're together pretty much all day, every day, even if we're working on our own separate things, we're still in the same building. But it's still different because we are focused on business during the day. We're not focused on our marriage. So we do still come with the same challenge of finding that time. Once we leave here and go pick up the kids, we know how crazy that gets for a few hours with them, with eating dinner and stuff. There's no private conversations, and you know what I mean? And so I got it. When you said it like that, I was like, oh yeah, because I mean, even though we're together, we're so focused on business, it is very much like we always have to make sure to be very conscious of the time that we're taking, just him and I. So that's interesting.
Sure. One second.
Okay. Awesome. So we do want to keep the new tradition that was actually your idea going, which was to start incorporating a weekly challenge into our podcast. So, and we wanted you to be a part of this one because we know how important it is to, keep the marriage strong while also building our legacies. So, we wanted to put the challenge out there for you as long as you choose to accept it. Look, he's starting to look nervous. It's like a surprise when I surprise you. To take a surprise date with Candace and everybody else listening, a surprise date with your spouse or significant other.
Totally spontaneous.
So something spontaneous and different than the norm. So a random lunch, an extra date night. Maybe you set up like some cool, cute little movie and popcorn after the kids are in bed, or you take a random walk this week together or something. Like last week we went down to the beach on Friday morning, totally randomly, just for like a half hour, just to do something different. So just something spontaneous and different than the norm. That's the challenge. Just one time, not every day, just one time this week.
You gonna do it?
I'm on it. My mind is going. I'm on it. Let's go.
That's why I give you a buffet just in case. So there's a plethora of things to choose from, and we want to challenge all of our listeners as well to do this challenge as well. These things are so important, and I love them, and I like the spontaneity. So does that mean you have to do one for me and I have to do one for you since we both heard the challenge?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we're gonna be busy this week. All right.
Can somebody call Candace and have her do the challenge too?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll reach out to her. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time and being here today. Sure. As we know, your time is very precious.
It was as fun as I thought it was going to be, guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much, and we're so honored to have you in our life. We love you to pieces. And
yes,
do you want to wrap this up and take us out for the week?
Just a normal wrap up.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. Life, business, entrepreneurship, marriage, parenting. It is not easy. It all requires work, and we're all putting in the work to make it work with our special guests each week. Also, just trying to help give you guys different perspective, different experiences to help you put in that work. So take what you want. What you don't want, don't take. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Middleton Methods podcast.
Bye, guys.